When we think about the werewolves from Twilight, the first thing that comes to mind is Jacob a hunk? But what if I told you that behind those roars there's an ancient legend involving spirits, betrayal, and a wolf with a human soul? Today we're going to talk about how the Quileutes got this ability to transform into giant wolves. What's the origin of this rivalry with the vampires? And how does their story intertwine with another race of lycanthropes that almost nobody knows about, the Children of the Moon? Stay to discover the answers to these questions. What are werewolves really? To begin, we need to know what shapeshifters really are and where this lineage comes from. Shapeshifters, or better known as the werewolves from Twilight, are descendants of an ancient legend from the Quileute tribe. And back in those ancient times, Quileute warriors and chiefs had a power that today sounds almost mythological. They could leave their bodies and wander as spirits, communicate with animals, and even hear other people's thoughts. Just like in real life, there are many clans that have been lost over time who were able to communicate with animals. An example of this is shamanism, where the leader can communicate with ancestors and spirits. They were very connected with all of nature. But everything changed during the leadership of Taha, the same one who defeated the imposter Utlapa. What happened was that something in the spiritual balance broke and the tribe's powers evolved. After this evolution, the following generations were able to voluntarily transform into giant wolves in order to protect their lands and defend themselves from vampires. These warriors are known as the Quileute Shapeshifters, although they are also called the Werewolves, the Shapeshifting Wolves, or simply the Protectors. They are not evil creatures or movie monsters. They are heirs to a spiritual legacy, connected with the land, the blood, and duty. Before the giant wolves that protect folks existed, there was the legend of a spiritual warrior named Utlapa, who had a rather dark plan. He wanted to use his powers to enslave the neighboring tribes, the Hos and the Makas, but their chief, Taha, who was the leader of the tribe, wasn't about to play villain games. When he learned of his intentions, he banished him from the tribe. One day, Taha left his body in a hiding place, so he could explore the valley in his spirit form, with the goal of finding invisible threats. But Utlapa followed him, found his body, and took advantage of this opportunity to possess it. That's right, just as you heard. Utlapa entered Taha's body, and with this body, killed his own by cutting his throat so that Taha would have no way to return, leaving him to wander as a spirit forever. He could only watch as this imposter destroyed his entire village, until one day, in the forest, he found a large and beautiful wolf. And although he felt a bit jealous of such an imposing form, he came up with a great idea. He asked the wolf to share its body with him, and surprisingly, the wolf agreed. So Taha returned to the village as a wolf and tried to make himself recognized by singing Quileute songs. Quileute! An old warrior named Jut realized that this wolf had a spirit inside and disobeyed the orders of the false chief. He left his body to talk to him. The imposter, seeing that Jut could discover the truth, killed him. At that moment, Taha got angry. He threw himself at the false chief with so much emotion that the wolf's body couldn't take it. He transformed into a human being, the perfect physical version of Taha spirit. They ended the imposter's life and everything went back to normal. Taha had many children and discovered that when they reached adulthood, they could also transform into wolves. That's how the Shapeshifters were born. The entire pack is made up of the descendants of this original wolf. So far, Leah Clearwater is the only known woman who inherited the Shapeshifter gene. The others are only men. But what if I told you that the Quileute aren't the only wolves? Are there Children of the Moon who are more like the ones we know? Instead of just turning into a big giant wolf, the Children of the Moon are wolves with a humanoid shape. What sets them apart from the Quileute clan is that the Children of the Moon can only shapeshift when there's a full moon. And not just at will, like the Quileute. Also, they can only transform if someone bites them. And for the Quileute, this transformation is only hereditary. For the children of the moon, it's not like that. They can't even reproduce while transformed. Normally, they're not in a pack, not like the Quileute, who never separate and are always together. In real-life legends, werewolves are weak to silver bullets. But the children of the moon are immune, and since they differ from vampires in that their main food is blood, they are mortal enemies. Not only did the children of the moon have a feud with the vampires, the Quileute also began to have problems with them. The enmity began when the vampires started hunting on the lands near La Push. And even though not all vampires were killers, the Quileute made no distinctions. To them, any vampire was a threat. This tension lasted for generations, with fragile agreements that forbade vampires from entering Quileute territory and vice versa. For a long time, the vampires killed the werewolves in their own territory. The wolves called the vampires the Cold Ones, although in the end, they left their territory. Later they returned and with more warriors. Carlyle was the vampire who offered the peace treaty. Although in the future, in the saga, we see how this rivalry continues. Even more so when a vampire and a werewolf fall in love with the same woman. Forks became the border between the Quileute and the Cullen family. Although the treaty was fragile, it allowed them to live in peace. And even though Jacob broke this agreement by entering the Cullen territory, there were no consequences. At the end of the movies, these clans put aside their differences and joined forces to fight against their common enemies, the Volturi. So as you can see, the werewolves in Twilight are not simple creatures. They come from an entire culture and spiritual traditions. Warriors with deep roots, connected to nature. The Quileute and the Children of the Moon represent two different ways of understanding power, transformation, and the fight against vampires. One by heritage, the other by curse. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Give it a like if you enjoyed it, and comment what you thought.